Okay, welcome
Hello.
to the very first conversation I'm recording as part of our Summer of Light Sovereignty Summit. The purpose for today's conversation and for our Summer of Light Sovereignty Summit as a whole is because I'm a woman on a mission, really to learn everything that I can about sovereignty and how we can actively co-create our truly free humanity in our world together now. So I am Sovereign Solange Ellen, and today I'm connecting with Sovereign Man Jeffrey Slayter. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Good to connect you. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Thank you for making yourself available for this conversation, Jeff. I really value and respect you and your work so much. For people that might not have connected with you and your work before now, would you be able to please share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm only sharing this because I would like people to know a bit about where I'm coming from with this information. So that's where I'm sharing this from. So I've worked with over 1 million people in over 13 different countries. I've had the privilege of sharing the stage with people like Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, DeMartini, and many others. I'm a best-selling author. And primarily what I do is I work with people who are entrepreneurs who want to make more money and more impact with their businesses. Basically, the businesses are vehicles for change. And I'm really happy to be here because we connected at one of my events many years ago, and you were so supportive at the event as well. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And yeah, that is our backstory. So I first connected with you in Adelaide when you brought your business development at live event initially, and then the year following that, you changed things up significantly and then came back to Adelaide with your Free Humanity event.
Yes, it's interesting to hear the name. It was many years ago. I think it was like 5 years ago, maybe longer.
Yeah, maybe even longer. We won't count.
Yeah.
But the second time that you brought your Free Humanity event, I got to be part of your support crew. And it was a really significant experience for me in just becoming aware of things that I'd never really connected with before. And one of those that is super significant is the word and the idea and the energy of sovereignty and what that is and what does that mean. So if you could, Jeff, share a little bit about what Free Humanity was, where the events came from, the inspiration behind that.
Gosh, where did that come a while ago? And it's evolved so much since then. It came from a deep desire of inherent knowingness that we are free and will always be free. Yet the first step is to deprogram and go back to the original premise of who we are as human beings. And a lot of that event was created to strip away the programming of my not only my audiences but myself as well, about everything that is between us and our experience of humanity and the gift of being alive and all the things and the gifts that can come from that. So that was an expression at the time of that intention. And the main message is sovereignty, of course.
Yeah. And so since then, what have you learned and how have you sort of deepened and, really taken ownership of your own sovereignty in your own life and in your work as well?
A bigger increase in self-responsibility and discipline. So what I found is it's a direct correlation between my level of discipline and my overall fulfillment in life. And so as I become more disciplined in my health and my finances and my relationships with who I am in the world, and not perfect, but as I go through this and keep raising the bar, it can be harder at times, but also more fulfilling. And so while the world goes through its transformation right now, with this chaos, I'm doing my best to be as still as possible, but also be deliberate with my intentions and my words and what I do and who I'm serving and the impact I'm making. It's evolved so much. It's just, even when you say that for humanity, I'm like, wow, it was at the time, we were talking about a lot of these things that are happening now. And it's interesting to see it come about where there's this alchemization taking place, right? of where we're not really a caterpillar and we're not a butterfly yet. And right now it's just chaos in the external world. You know, there's financial crises. There's so many different businesses that are going bankrupt. And I talked that this time would come, and it'll be known as also the greatest awakening humanity's ever experienced for some.
Yeah. So it's exciting and it's an opportunity. And
Yep.
I think, you know, the asking that's coming out of the chaos, because I think there are more people awake now than ever before. And as people are waking up and they're sort of seeing that the system is wanting to become more controlling and more oppressive, and our soul and our spirit is sort of organically responding with a no, that that's not who we are. You know, we naturally want to be free. What do we need to be aware of to really hold those sacred boundaries of our sovereignty and our freedom as a human being while all of this transformation is happening in the world around us?
What do we need to be aware of? That the things we're most afraid of are parts of ourselves as well. Like, we're really, while we might be upset about things that are happening out there, or it's actually an internal world. So the more we can stop being at odds with ourselves, the more we're no longer at odds with the things around us. And the more we stop blaming the system and the circumstances for what's happening to ourselves, the more we'll actually take responsibility for who we are as human beings, as sovereign beings. And then we can start to practice our boundaries, you know, letting people into our world or not, and we get to choose. And I'm not saying that what's happening in the world is okay. I mean, there's crazy things that are happening with pedophilia that there's crazy, that they've been happening for a long time, but the shadows kind of revealed itself, right? And now is the time we actually can face those things. If we're willing to face the darkness that's out there, then we're willing to face the light within ourselves as well. But we have to be willing to face the shadows in ourselves too. And this is that shadow revealing itself, and our greatest opportunity to integrate the shadow.
Yeah, it is. It's a real challenge. I think when I'm talking to people about sovereignty, the two main fears and resistances I think that come up are, one, we can't do that if we try to step outside of the controls of the system, that we'll be punished by the system. And then the other side to it is this fear of freedom, like this fear of, to be free, people think this means to be lawless and to, you know, live in chaos where there won't be any natural order. It will just be like a free-for-all. So I think, you know, are you able to speak a little bit to those two sides of the fears that keep people wanting to be kind of ruled over rather than being self-responsible?
Well, I can only share from my perspective. So this isn't right now in the world, the collective majority. It seems to be that you can't really say much about much at all. You know, people get offended about everything right now. So people can get offended that I'm in a collared shirt. They get offended that everything. It's just like political correctness is crazy. And you know what? That's the way it is right now at the collective. So what I'm saying is that this is my opinion, and I have every right to share my opinion, and people can take it or leave it. It's totally fine. And they don't need to adopt it as the truth and the final truth. They can just take it or leave it. Totally fine. And everyone has the right to express their opinion. And that's what it is, opinion. And so from my viewpoint, after working with millions of people all over the world, what I feel is going on right now is there's a massive martyr program that's running through humanity. Like, there's everyone's just a victim of something, and they become extremely soft in their ability to hear any information. Like people just are so sensitive to getting hurt about this or about that, or that, emotionally hurt, that no one can say anything anymore. There's like this cancel culture that's going on that is literally like anyone has an opinion that's different than somebody else's, then they get upset, they get angry. And what's happening is it's creating massive separation and disconnect from each other. And it's so easy to look at what separates us, as human beings. It's so simple. Like, man, woman, this, you live here, I live there. You just so many things that separate us. And what's challenging now is, let's look at what unifies us. And what the real issue right now is what unifies us is we like to live in a world where there's harmony, where we get to release all these incredible technologies for the good. What if there's thousands and thousands of technologies that are laying dormant that could be released to humanity that could actually be used for good, but we're just not quite ready for them yet in a consciousness. What if they were, because we're so much of humanity is committed, it wants power versus actually power versus actually leadership and actually stewardship, that those technologies aren't going to be released yet. I don't know. What if all the things, there were cures for diseases that we've been trying to fight for the last 100 years? What if those existed? I don't know. I could be wrong. What if actually some of the people in charge right now have been, that we think that we love and admire, they may not be as cool as they think they are. What if we're wrong? What if majority of what we believe to be true about the world is not actually true? What if our history was totally different? What if our history of human beings was not what they said it is? I mean, that would make me challenge everything. And it made me challenge me as a human being in my relationship. So I just feel it's time to question things. I think if you don't question things, I would question people. Like literally people want to question things. You might as well just be a robot.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I really, like, my heart just so much wants to be able to connect with people across all the divides and just be united in our humanity, and in the common ground that we have, which is, I want to be free, and I want all my fellow brothers and sisters, or my human family, to be free. I want natural health, and I want to be free to be able to make the choices for my body and my health and my family, and to have our home be a sanctuary, and to live in harmony with other human beings and all life, our beautiful planet, to have eco-harmony. And yeah, it does feel like absolutely every conversation is just fraught with, potential triggers that can turn someone, that I love and want the best for, into, someone that's going to feel confronted by me. And yeah, I'm really open to how can we sort of move beyond that tension of being fearful of each other and suspicious of each other, and to regain trust in, ourselves and each other as brothers and sisters in a human family, rather than being...
No, it's time. I'm getting pretty tired of it, honestly. I'm like, this is so weird. I know for myself, I'm just exhausted by by everyone's being like, everyone's offended everything. It's just wild. Brene Brown said something quite well, and she said, what is trust? Now, she says this so much better than I will, but she defined trust, and she broke out the word trust into a word called braving. And each word had an acronym. I'll do my best to each word had a saying under it to remind us. And she defined trust as this. She said, B for braving stands for boundaries. And she said that our ability to know our own boundaries. And so if we want to have trust with let's say with our friends or relationships with people around us, we need to communicate our own boundaries clearly and respect those boundaries of the people, of ourselves. First step, boundaries. So knowing your own boundaries. Now more than ever, it seems like you have to have boundaries or else you get eaten up. And I think it's a good thing, like, for example, let's say there's a bear, and there's a lot of bypassing that's going on in the spiritual movement that happens. I've noticed. It's like, it's all love and light, right? And it's a bunch of bypassing that's going on. So that's basically like saying, let's say there's a bear, and the bear's walking the bear's walking through the forest, and then a bunch of animals come and attack the bear. If the bear was just committed to being passive and love and light, it would say, go ahead and eat me, no problem. And then just roll over, and then all the other animals eat it. But that's not how nature works. A bear has to have some sort of, has to be a little bit like, has a little bit of predator in it, has to defend itself. So bears walking through the forest, and those things that attack it the bear has to have boundaries, and it shows a little teeth every once in a while, and it shows some teeth, and if they keep coming towards it, it shows more teeth. And if it keeps coming towards it and it attacks, the bear has the right to actually to release its inner predator and to defend itself. And those are boundaries. And I think the spiritual movement has gotten to a point, in my opinion, where literally it's like not okay to have any boundaries, and everyone gets offended by speaking up in your boundaries. And so that's what I think is going on. And what it's causing is actually a lack of action in the areas that are needed, because they just think if they just meditate, it's going to get better, when they're essentially full of shit. So this first step is boundaries. And then she said the next thing was braving, which is R stands for responsibility. So this means taking responsibility for yourself, and taking responsibility for what happens or doesn't happen. Like being responsible for results. So the next thing she said is A, which is to be accountable. And like, if you have a relationship with somebody else, it's becoming accountable, literally becoming accountable to if you screw up, to be an accountable enough human being, say, you know what, I was wrong. Like what I noticed, what's happening in the world right now is quite interesting, is like, I think a lot of what I used to think about politics potentially was wrong. Like, and I had to admit to myself, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. And I think now how it is different. And I've been wrong before, and admitting it and be accountable. Like if I get upset with my partner and get a little like snippy, it's like, I screwed up there. It's like, I apologize. So being accountable. You want to have trust with people, you gotta be accountable. The next thing is actually V, stands for the vault, is that she talks about, which is literally having a vault, which is there's information that I share and I keep to myself and that other person, and their job is to not share that with other people. So whatever I share is near and dear to me, they keep the same. And that also means, and what also is, I tend to see happening in the spiritual community, is people will gossip and saying, oh my gosh, but they'll do it in a very different way. I bet that person thinks this, or they'll say it in a very spiritual way, but really they're just gossiping. And then they share other people's information with other people when it's not theirs to share. So that's a break in trust too of the vault. And the other thing is I, which is having integrity. So braving, which is integrity, which is do what you're freaking gonna say. So often I notice in a lot of love and light communities is people like, they make business commitments with people to go work with them, and then they change their mind that, oh, their financial obligations. They're just like, hey, I made a contract. I'm going to show up in 2 months for this to grow myself because I said I would. And then they feel different and they change their mind. It doesn't work that way. You want to grow yourself, it's going to feel uncomfortable, and to keep your freaking commitments. That's integrity. But then they'll use spiritual lingo to say it just doesn't feel in alignment anymore, when essentially they're just scared and full of shit. So the next thing is integrity, is N, which is ing, braving. Yeah, is N, which is, what was N? What was N? Do my best. Ing. I have a notes. This is so good. I want to share it with you. Like, when I got this, I was like, kudos to Brene Brown actually for doing such a good job of actually sharing this stuff in a way that actually really makes sense.
She does. I love her messages about vulnerability.
Yeah, totally. People should watch her Netflix thing. She's cool. So the next one is non-judgment. So this is interesting. Is being able to share with somebody else that you're able to be not judged. Is like judged for having certain different views politically, or not judged for for needing help. Now, there's also a process as well. Is that also means that when you need help, you're not like looking down on the other person either. So non-judgmental. And the last one is to be generous. I've noticed a lot of times people tend to be they're not very generous with other people, as far as like the person wants to give, but then they live their whole life, like they might be very empathetic, right? And their whole life is all about giving to other people, but they don't actually, the other people around them are just using them instead of actually being there for them. So there's a lack of generosity. Now this made a lot of sense, but so to build trust with other people, those distinctions, braving, should be in place, right? And when I put people through that filter of who do I actually trust, it's not many people. But when I used to just have trust as one word, it was too hard to distinguish it. Do I trust that person? Yes or no? Very too cold turkey. But then when I broke it up into like those categories, I could actually go, oh, that's where the trust got broken. No, the person doesn't do what they say they're going to do. Oh no, they're not generous, or they are generous. And I asked myself, is the system something I can trust? Is it reliable? Does it respect my boundaries? Does the system itself, does it have integrity? Does it do what it's saying going to do? Is it generous? Does it give back? And I went, oh my gosh, not sure if it does. And then I went, but wait a minute, since I'm a sovereign human being, do I employ that braving into myself? Do I trust myself? And I realized, am I respecting boundaries with myself? Yes or no? Yes. Do I communicate boundaries with myself? Yes. Do I know what they are? Yes. If I don't, I got work to do. Am I responsible for myself, my own results? Yes or no? Sometimes not. If I'm not, I got to get to work. Am I accountable to myself? When I say I'm going to work out, do I work out? If I say I'm going to get this thing done, do I get it done? That builds trust. Do I keep the information safe to me that I want to keep safe and only share it to people I actually really, really trust? And sometimes the answer was no, I don't, which just means I'm not of course I'd question if I trust myself, if I give away information to people that is near to my heart. And do I have integrity with myself? Do I do what I'm going to say? Do I do what I'm going to do? Do I do what I'm going to, whatever I promise, do I actually do it for myself? Like, for example, if I say the next morning I'm going to go for a hike for myself, do I do it? And the last one I found for myself, which is, am I generous to myself? When I screw up, generosity is really important. And I'll add to this, is that with the people around you that you love, do you give them the benefit of the doubt, like their intended positive outcome? Like I screw up a lot in my life, but I know inherently that my intended positive outcome was to do good for the world. And so am I generous with myself there? And then with the people I love, am I generous with them that, yes, she might have spoken out of turn and been a little bit snippy, but I know inherently her intentions are good. So when I heard this, it reframed my entire life. And I went, wow, I'm going to only spend time with people around me, because I like my boundaries, with people that I trust. And I mean, they trust those domains. And I'm gonna make sure that I hold a vision that's possible, that we actually have a system in this world that actually I can trust. But I first have to trust myself. So if we want to change this system, what we're getting right now is a mirror reflection of the lack of trust we have in ourselves. As long as we're looking for outside validation and authority because we can't take care of ourselves, then we're always going to have a system like this. So we must go back to the original premise of who we are as human beings and go back into trusting ourselves again.
Yeah.
Those distinctions.
I think that is at the essence of becoming, being ready and able to take responsibility for the power that comes with being a sovereign human being, is that we need to be trustworthy. It's a lot of power. With great power comes great responsibility.
And we need to be trustworthy with ourselves. It always starts with us. And I think that there's a lack of trust of ourselves as human beings,
Yeah, and where does that come from? Why do you think so many of us are so unable to actually trust ourselves?
because of trauma. It's unresolved. And it's really, really scary to look at our own trauma and our own shadows. And I know for myself, like as I look at those, and there's that I have looked at those with myself, man, it's the most terrifying thing. I've been, I had to come to terms with the fact that like I've really screwed up, and I was blind. I really thought that the school system really cared about me. I really thought that the food that they told me to eat, in school and all this stuff, I thought that just because it was, this company was giving it was healthy. I used to think that McDonald's was actually like the salads were healthy.
Yeah.
Like that's my responsibility. I believed a lie. Another thing.
A lot of very good marketing people, a lot of money to trick us into believing those lies.
Totally, and they do, and they trick us, and it's like, sure, they trick us, and if I'm haven't done enough work to realize, then it's on me. It's my responsibility. So that's a different way to look at it. Like we could blame them, and I get it, and they shouldn't be doing it, but we have to take it upon ourselves to wake up and go, you know what? They don't have a best interest, and look at them through the braving. Do they respect our boundaries? Are they reliable? And if the answer is no, and if we keep going and eating their crap food, it's on us.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a remembering how to discern in this, like, rebuilding and regaining trust in ourselves and in our own ability to sort the wheat from the chaff, and to really, make honest assessments of information and people and invitations and whatever is coming into our experience, for us to be able to be the responsible person, to be able to discern like what basically is coming from love, and what is going to be genuinely good, and nourishing, and mutually beneficial, and create those things that we want to see in the world, versus what are those things that are coming in that might seem good on the surface, but in reality, they're not.
I'll tell some people some steps they can follow to support them in discovering more of their sovereignty. And this is only from my own journey, okay? And they can take or leave it. And it will seem kind of simple, but it's not. Tesla says we're transmitters and receivers. We're literally, our bodies are like so intelligent as bodies. And when they're not filled with toxins, they know how to operate. They can feel things that are good for it and feel things that aren't. For example, now after having eaten clean for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I don't even know how long it's been, not had a bunch of McDonald's and all that stuff. It's like, McDonald's used to taste really good. I used to drive down, I used to literally drive at lunch for high school. I would drive down the street at lunch hour and have a McDonald's burger. And you know what? It really tasted good. In fact, I would like pull open the burger and I put French fries on it, which they call chips in Australia. And then I put ranch dressing, which I don't have in Australia, and then all over it, and put the bun back in and eat it. And it was so tasty. But now I can simply drive by that place or even put my hand on it, and I realize this is poison. But it tasted so good then. But that's because my body was filled with toxins. So my point is, the first step to actually navigating and being discerning this time is to actually clean our vessel. It means, like, one of the things is our gut, and I'm not a health professional or anything like that, but like literally clean our guts out, because our guts is like is literally like gut, our intuition. It's where our intuition lies. So I'm not saying that they should speak to a health professional, but like even there's a product called like Bowel Restore or it's called, like clean your gut out, do a gut cleanse. It's not for everyone. Consult with a doctor. You could die, blah, blah, blah. It's important. Just because I'm in white shirt doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about. So like literally, clean your gut out. What that does, it gets rid of all the parasites. First step. Then you can start to feel again. You can feel what's in alignment with you and not. You can feel what's toxic and not. But if you're filled with toxins, it's hard to actually navigate what's toxic and not, because you're toxic. But once you start getting that done, then what happens is you clean your gut out. You might get a little agitated. and a little frustrated, but that's all agitation that's in our cellular structure, and that starts to leave. Then clean your water and have clean water and start eating organic and food. Then the vessel becomes a clean vessel. And then from there, the next step is clean your thoughts. No longer speak about disempowering thoughts about ourselves. Like I'm not good enough, or I'm not this, don't speak anymore, because you speak in resistance. So clean that out. And then I would look at the people around you, and I would remove everyone that doesn't fit under the category of braving, where you can't trust them. So cut them out. Toxic, boom, boom. The same way you cut out toxic food, cut them out of your life. And then make sure you cut off the news, make sure you spend time in nature, and make sure you exercise. And right there, you just start to feel your way through this time. And as you feel your way through this time, what will begin to happen is the red carpet of life will start to roll out. And what that red carpet is your soul's path. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, it will be very, very scary. It will feel very foreign. Why? Because change isn't always comfortable. So it's not as hard as everyone thinks it is. It's quite easy, actually. Clean up your diet.
The biggest barrier, I think, that I come up in conversations when I'm talking to people in my life in general, and talking about, I can generally get consensus that the system has got serious problems and we do need change. And, people are willing to acknowledge and admit that. But then there's this, what are you going to do about it? Nothing's ever really going to change. And this total disempowered state of, it is what it is and it's out of our hands, instead of any sense of awareness that we are actively participating in the co-creation of what's happening in our world right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to be at a table to think mediocrely. That's a very mediocre program, which is there's nothing we can do about it, because everyone thinks that way. That's easy. So if we're at a table where everyone's thinking in a mediocre way, normal, which is there's nothing we can do about it, it's just the way it is, then that's the reality. But then when we take things and we become accountable to ourselves, then you know what, that might be a mess, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take responsibility for myself, my sovereignty, my health, my life, my results. I'm going to take responsibility for that. And that's what we can do. And naturally, that will start to change. Have you ever noticed, I find it interesting, is like as soon as you change your life, like as a person, like I've noticed for myself, is like as soon as I would like this, when this whole crisis thing happened, I decided what I would do is 4 days a week, I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do like a crazy boot. There's a guy that I do a boot camp with, and we run up rivers and mountain bike at like 6 in the morning, 6:15, do Zoom movements. It's been doing it for now 5 months, But as soon as I did that, what happened was my friends, I didn't have to say anything. My friends around me started to raise their fitness. It was like I had done one thing, and all of a sudden I changed my own life, and everyone around me started to change. I didn't have to say anything. It was wild. They all started getting like in better shape, and they all started looking up to the healthy more. All I did was change my life. It's crazy how it's connected.
Yeah. And I think that is where we're at, isn't it? Everything is energy, and those of us that are aware that we are conscious creators have an even greater responsibility to be extra discerning and really clearly committed to what it is that we're here to consciously create together.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility. Once we're aware that we are co-creating, then raise the game.
So what is your vision, Jeffrey, for our world?
I'm going to share the vision for the world, but ultimately it's up to us to each of us have a little piece of the vision, right? I just keep seeing a world where I can bring my kids to a museum, and I walk through this museum, and I'm walking through this museum, and then I show them like a display, and the display, they're very confused, but there's this way, like they're kind of like, "What's that, Dad?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a hospital." And there's like mannequins of people with nurses and masks on, and I'm like, and you go, "Well, what's a hospital for?" I'm like, "Oh, people back in the day used to get sick." And they go, oh, sick, what's that? And they don't even know what it is because it's just such a thing in the past. And then they go to the next aisle, and there's like a pictures of soldiers shooting each other and like mannequins. And they go, and then like things being blown up, and they're like, they used to do that, and they're confused that that would be something that humans would do to each other. And I'm like, yeah, that's something they used to do. It doesn't happen anymore. And they're like, wow, like they didn't even, it's like a couple, like, it's just such an old thing that never happened. I have to explain how weird it was. And then even showing them then I would show them pictures of modern agriculture with these big machines and then places where they kill all the animals and slaughterhouses and this mechanistic type of agriculture that goes on. And they look at it like it was 5,000 years ago. They're like, what is that? Like so archaic, the same way we would look at a Nokia from like the first Nokia. They're like so confused by what that is. I'm like, oh yeah, that's old technology. Like, wow, that's how food is done? That's so weird. I thought like everything grew from itself and it just all worked in nature, it worked with each other. I'm like, yeah, that's how things are now. And then we'd walk outside and it'd be really, really peaceful. But peaceful from a way of like, there'd be a sense that everyone would be sovereign in themselves. And it would just work the way nature intended it to work. And that's the vision I have for humanity, where we look at what unifies us and thousands of new technologies that are there sitting on the surface that are just waiting for our consciousness to rise are available to us. And those become used for benevolent purposes. And instead of malevolent, which is what's happening with most of these technologies right now. And we live in a world where it's amazing. And,
it really is.
Yeah.
My heart totally holds that vision. I share that with you. I think it is written into our divine blueprint. Written into us.
Yeah.
So just regarding business, Jeff, and the role of business and business leadership in helping to lead and facilitate this change out of this kind of predatory model, into being able to meet the needs of human beings in ways that are genuinely good for human beings and our earth. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. Look, the system itself of capitalism is a psychopathic system. And for us to go from where we are now to utopia and everyone's just like trading things and all that stuff it's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. It's step by step. It's a little bit like if all of a sudden everyone's bank accounts were just filled up with money. There's a Pareto's law where the money would get because of the way the consciousness net is right now. All the money would be redistributed anyway. It's almost where it is already. Like it doesn't. Giving people a bunch of money is not the solution. It'll just redistribute itself. It'll take a little while, and that's all would happen. So, but the mystic learns to swim where the psychopath drowns. So instead of actually trying to make it not predatory anymore, we actually need to learn to swim in predatory waters. And that actually means embracing the inner predator in us with benevolent intent. And by doing that, we actually move from, like Robert Kiyosaki says, from being peacetime leaders to wartime leaders. Where we move from being like, hey, it's all love and light, to actually spiritual warriors. And we move our businesses from being businesses to literally vehicles for change. But we have to still learn to swim in these waters, but we're no longer afraid of the waters anymore. And so, but with benevolent intent, which means, a nice guy that can't be dangerous isn't a nice guy. A dangerous man that can be kind or nice is actually kind, because he can choose to be. So we've got too many people that want to start their businesses and think it's all going to be like, it should all be really harmonious all the time and really comfortable, and it's not okay to sell anything. And what happens is they get chewed up. And you know what happens? They don't make any money. and then they can't amplify what they're here to amplify in the world. So I love working with people to help bring their message out and their business out, and help them make money with their genius, but be okay with making money, because then all money is the amplifier. And so if we can help people with good intentions, with benevolent intentions, make more money, then we get more of that in the world. But if the only way they're going to make more money and more impact is if they stop being at the reaction to a predatory system. They have to actually develop teeth, which means learn business models, learn to sell, learn to make an impact, learn to be seen, learn to stand up for yourself, learn to hold your value, learn to have boundaries, learn to ask for the sale, learn to ask for what you need. And when you do that, you'll swim in these waters, and then ultimately we can make more money and more impact.
We need that. We need we need the people that have loving hearts and that genuinely goodwill towards other human beings and our planet to be the ones, that are the best resourced, so that we can fund the best ideas.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, this is kind of funny, but I'm not saying that that like Trump has a big heart, but like he's an example of everyone that guy is so hated right now. But what's interesting is is I've read so much stuff about him freeing so many children that have been abused sexually.
Yes.
But he's hated, but the results are actually there. So I'm kind of in a little bit of, whoa, what's going on? For example, it's so weird. His wife was walking out of the helicopter, and she had a dress on, and it was scribbled. It was scribbled all over, right? And everyone hated her for it. Look at that dress. Looked like Donald Trump just scribbled a bunch of stuff on it. But you know what the dress was? She bought the dress from it was an Alexander McQueen dress as a charity that actually was pictures of children that had been abused. And it was their therapy or whatever it was that they painted the dress. So what I'm saying is that benevolence may not look all nice and cozy as everyone thought. It's maybe it's what's needed to get the children out is some warriors.
Yeah.
I don't know, so my idea of everything being hunky-dory and love and light and no one can disrupt anything, that was wrong. I actually think right now what we need is wartime leadership, which is someone to be called potentially a narcissist. He might be a narcissist. Who cares? I don't know. But all I know is I'm kind of tired of children being abused and molested, and all I know is that that's changing right now. So I don't give a shit if someone thinks he's a narcissist or not. At least the kids are getting free.
Yeah. Yes, we need people that are going to get the job done, and the jobs that need to be done now are hard jobs. It's not pleasant. No one wants to deal with the most difficult and toxic things. And I think the damage that has been done to children around the whole of our planet Earth has reached a crisis point where we as a human family all need to wake up to our responsibility. This is our collective responsibility to put children's welfare beyond, above all of the other things that happen, apart from perhaps looking after our planet so we've got somewhere to live together. Yep. But other than that, protecting the safety and sanctity of our children is really protecting the heart of humanity. And
when you say, I'm glad you brought it up, because Tony Robbins, it was his birthday. I don't know how long ago it was, but he raised $15 million or 30 million Australian or something. And what he said was so fascinating to me. He raised it for children in sex trafficking and child slavery. And he said it's a bigger industry than the drug industry. And you know what I said? I said, knowing business, I thought to myself, I said, if that's the case, no industry gets that big unless there's corruption from the inside top. Nothing gets that big, nothing. So that means I was so surprised. I was like, you're saying that sex slavery and child trafficking is bigger than drugs? How the heck did it get that big? And then I put it together. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then it really made me question everything. And And even so much, it was like right now we almost need some people that be willing to not be liked, to actually do the work that needs to be done, because the way that trauma is actually, the frequency of this planet is actually dumbed down is by continually having trauma happen in the world. And I was like thinking about, it's like, this child stuff has been going on for 10, 15 years or longer, like for a long, long time. So if this was going on, I had no idea how serious it was. I knew it was serious, but the last year I've just been like, whoa, this is huge. Even Tony Robbins is like, this is massive. And it's if you wanted to control a population, you would make sure that this fear, this trauma would be continually running in the background the whole time. And I'm glad that even if I don't personally like some of these leaders, at least somebody's doing something about it. I'd rather have someone that I don't personally like freeing this trauma, than someone who's like preaching love and light and doesn't do shit.
Yeah. And that is, I think, what we have had for a long time is leaders that pay a lot of lip service, but when we actually look at the reality that we've had, human and child trafficking has become the biggest black market on planet Earth.
So it's wild, and it's killing us. It's killing our ability to ascend into ourselves, and someone's got to do something. And if it's somebody that I don't like personally, I don't care. I want it done. Yeah. And this is what's getting between people. If people think they have to like each other personally, they don't. We just have to each his own, you know?
Yeah, we've got to focus on our core values as a human family, and putting child protection at the center of that is what is needed, I think, now to essentially shift us out of this, dog eat dog paradigm being the dominant system. That is being held in place, like you said, by the trauma, and being able to end that trauma so that we can begin to heal is where we really need to focus our, if nothing else, our creative intent, our prayer. If nothing else, just holding that conscious prayer that we really do bring this shadow world of child and human trafficking out into the light, so that we can bring it to an end, remove the people that have been orchestrating it and profiting from it, and really clean it up so that we can start the healing and shift into our genuine, not the false light and love, not the fake superficial, everything,
the organic one, the one
yes, the natural one, the natural love-based reality where human beings can be whole, like you've been talking about, where we are living in a physical reality, and we do need to be discerning. There are people that do wish us harm, and we need to have our wits about us to be able to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't need to be living in fear constantly. And I think that's kind of the dynamic that has, the mainstream and the people that are sort of tuned into the messaging that's coming at them from the mainstream now are really living in fear. I had a lady jump back from me when she remembered that she'd forgotten to social distance today.
It's when we're not strong in ourselves and we don't trust ourselves, we have more fear. But if it's like it's almost like surfing was a big part of my life, and I now do a lot more hiking outside. But when I lived on the ocean for a while, and I would surf constantly. And it was interesting because I would surf waves 3 to 4 feet, consistently, right? And then I would go to Bali and the waves would be 8 feet, and it'd be really scary. It was just scary. But I'd surf those waves for about 2 or 3 weeks consistently, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet. And then I went to those waves and I got more comfortable after about 3 weeks, right? And I actually got stronger. And so then when I went back to the 3-foot waves, it wasn't that they changed. I was just a lot stronger. So maybe we need to just get stronger. Maybe we just need to get stronger in our sovereignty, stronger in our responsibility, stronger in our integrity with ourselves. And then maybe those things won't be so scary anymore. So it's not about trying to avoid things anymore. It's just get stronger in ourselves, and then we don't have anything to fear anymore. I didn't fear I didn't fear after 3 weeks of surfing in 6 to 8 foot waves. I wasn't as afraid of when I was first surfing the first week. So maybe this whole thing that's coming up right now in this shadow is actually having us becoming stronger in ourselves. Who knows?
I'm going to hold that is exactly what we're doing. It's all just conditioning, but not in the way that the social engineers intend. They're trying to condition us into subservience. But I really am holding that actually what's happening is, we as human beings are waking up and remembering who we are and becoming stronger in, I think it's that thing of polarization, when we become really clear on what we definitely do not want, it gives us the ability to be that much more clear on what it is that we really do want. And
I teach, we have a lot of, Kate and I, we have this mentorship where people come to us, and Kate teaches this whole thing called conflict marketing. And everyone's like, oh, it's conflict. I don't like conflict. And the thing is but just by standing for something, you will meet opposition. So the thing is, no one's willing to stand for anything anymore. But in marketing right now, in business, you have to stand for something. And that in itself is conflict. And so what happens is she would help these people build their brands, but by standing for something, and then it naturally create conflict because that's the outcome we needed to create the change. And so what I'm basically sharing is that now's the time to develop a little more teeth, a little more strength, a little more ability to paddle through tougher waves, to develop strength. But there are those that are choosing to stay asleep, and they should have that journey. That's okay. Then there's those that are awake, and those that are awakening, and those that are asleep. And I'm really grateful for the people that are actually asleep, because the density is required in order to have the other. So there's a bit of gratitude for also people that are just like, I'm good. I like this complacency. I'm good, because then it doesn't show the duality as well. That's needed. I used to kind of be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with these people? Oh my gosh, like, come on, guys. Now I'm like, to each his own. It's not my place. It's not my place to like have to wake everybody up. I'll work on me and they do them. So
I'm working on that. I'm still working on the surrendering of letting everyone be where they're at and trusting they are where they need to be.
It's a work in progress. And then there's times to do something. Like, this is why I was so happy to chat with you. It's like, there's like to each his own. And then there's like, hey, this feels like it's part of the path to have a conversation with you, and we'll just do this. And the people who listen, they listen. If they don't, they don't. That's okay. But you just follow the path.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm aware of the time, and we've almost been talking for an hour, which has just flown by.
Perfect.
For any conscious business owners and leaders that have been listening that would like to learn more about how they could connect with you and work with you, where would they go? They should go to my Instagram, and that's like Jeff, Jeff Slayter. Okay, at Jeff Slayter, Slayter. They should follow me on Instagram, and then at the top in the bio, there's all kinds of ways they can work with me. Also, they should follow me on Facebook, Jeff Slayter. And then I have a group called Visionary Entrepreneurs, and they can go and search Visionary Entrepreneurs. There's all kinds of content in there as well. And then plug into Kate and I's great work, and it can support you on building your business and making the change that people want to make. So that's how they can do it. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for having been able to share this time with you, and grateful for the wisdom that you've shared. I think there's some, really powerful stuff in there that people are going to be able to take and use. And that's what I'm really wanting to bring to people is, useful information, because we're so bombarded with so much information, and so much of it, we can't do anything with. So we need that information that's actually going to enable us to become empowered and sovereign and conscious creators and co-creators. Yeah, absolutely. You're so welcome. Thanks for putting this on and bringing people together. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to call that a wrap and just turn this off.